The Long Ride Home, pages 270 to 272. Educating Rowan. By April, we'd raised enough funds to be able to start developing new trails properly. Put in a covered arena with its sides open to the forest so that we could ride in the shade with the kids even on the hottest day, safe from the burning sun and still access nature, even on the hottest days. We built proper animal pens, planted proper pasture, began to harvest the hundreds of trees that the drought and the fires had destroyed, and redid all the temporary wire fencing with wood. And then, one day in May, Rowan dropped a bombshell. "No more school," he said to me and Jenny over breakfast one hot morning. "No more learning, no more school of any kind." My heart went into my mouth. What were we going to do now? Jenny and I went into a little huddle in the corner. Could we do this? Were we up for the challenge? We agreed that we were. "Okay, Scub," we said. "No more boring old lessons. From now on, only fun. That's official." "Right," he said. "Right," we agreed, eyeing each other a little nervously. And kept on doing what we were doing in exactly the same way, except that now we did it all by stealth. And so, Horseboy Learning and Movement Method were born. We'd already been fielding questions and fairly justifiable criticisms from autism families living in, say, London or Brooklyn along the lines of, well, it's all very well for you guys, you live in Texas, but how is this nature horse stuff relevant to our life in the city? Fair comment. So now, with Rowan saying no to any more schooling of any kind, we wondered, what if we could reproduce all the good stuff we got on the horse with regular play equipment? Like you'd find in any city playground or park, or even in a backyard or living room. What if any mum or dad could do what we did anywhere? What if it could help free them from dependence on expensive therapists? So that they could decide, not feel bullied into deciding whose services they wanted to use. So that a professional therapist would have to be at least as good as the parent was already to qualify for employment. So that families could engage his or her services as a choice, an option, rather than a dire necessity. And that if they ran out of money, they could offer their child the same, if not better, service as any special needs professional. Jenny, in particular, had already been putting a lot of thought into this. These past 2 years, she had, in addition to teaching Rowan and helping Ileana run new trails and the autism family playdates, been studying for a master's at the University of Texas, researching the outcomes of families who attended horseboy camps. The research was still in progress, but there was a lot of data to draw from. So between us all, we now came up with a second six-stage process, Horseboy Learning and Movement Method. It was, in effect, horseboy without horses, with an emphasis on perspective taking or brain repatterning and academic subjects. And once again, you started by creating the right environment, avoiding the bad sensory triggers and doing most of the teaching outside in a park or garden away from industrial machine noise. If you had to be indoors, you ensured the teaching took place in natural light, with plants and small animals such as a dog around, and with no disturbing noises in the background such as the hum from a refrigerator or air conditioner. To address the child's sensory issues, you made sure there were natural objects and materials to play with and explore, and depending on the tolerance level, you hugged, rocked the child as you taught them, giving deep pressure to release oxytocin, the feel-good and communication hormone. And then movement, movement, movement. If you couldn't go to the park that day or the pool, you used a small indoor trampoline or created fun obstacle courses out of the furniture and introduced rule-based games, perspective-taking and academics that way. Most kids on the spectrum are kinetic rather than visual or auditory learners. Once the child has physically done something, added or subtracted themselves from their sister, for example, or maths masquerading as a chase game with that, they can usually move the concept, in this case adding and subtracting, to paper after a couple of weeks. We really started to have fun with this at New Trails, mixing the work with the horses with playground games, which is theory of mind, played with the children on our shoulders in wheelbarrows in the new pool we'd raised money to install. Rowan and the other kids started learning basic physics, force, acceleration, depth, mass, pressure, through games in perspective taking in the pool, splashing and laughing madly all the while. And poo, of course. always our best ally. When the food goes in, goes down and out, well, that's physics. What happens in the gut? Chemistry. And the nutritional aspect of what we eat? Biology. And then you do the whole thing again, en français, in French. And finally, once again, self-advocacy, giving the children a chance to teach us what interests them. If a kid was into Grand Theft Auto, then we got into Grand Theft Auto, started learning about the programming, the graphics, the storylines, the history of organized crime. So we could carry on a conversation with that child about their obsession, show that we were interested, nurtured their interest, because one person's obsession is another person's livelihood. Who was to say that that kid might not go on to write the next big computer game? And the world is changing. There are software companies in Silicon Valley, for example, whose human resources departments are now actively looking for people with high-functioning autism diagnoses. So we no longer have to prepare kids for the industrial machine. Technology has changed all that. The future and the economy are wide open now, in a way they never have been before, for every kind of mind. Kids no longer have to be normal, they just have to be good at what they do. Jenny and her ever-growing team began to school Rowan according to the national curriculum without him even knowing, doing it completely through kinesthetics, movement, and even began to train others how to do it too. Parents and schools began to contact her for seminars and workshops. Movement method, like horseboy method, started to take off.